You ever knock on someone's door expecting one thing, and your entire life walks out to greet you? That's how it started. Not with a kiss, not with a date, not even with a flirtatious glance. Just a wrench. My name's Michael. I'm 26. I restore vintage motorcycles in my garage on weekends, work in a tech consultancy during the week, and drink too much coffee trying to balance both. This is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, I Knocked to Borrow a Wrench. She said, take my heart too. I just moved into this aging duplex on the outskirts of Portland, the kind of neighborhood where leaves crunch louder than traffic, and time seems to slow just enough to notice your own heartbeat. It was late autumn. The air carried the soft smell of chimney smoke and distant rain. I was fixing the brake on my 1974 Ducati when the wrench slipped from my hand and snapped. No hardware stores open. I wiped the grease off my fingers, walked across the narrow lawn, and knocked. That was the first time I saw her. Auburn hair tied in a loose bun, oversized flannel rolled at the sleeves, and the kind of eyes that feel like they already know your story. Not in a judgmental way, more like they've lived it, too. Hey, I said, awkwardly scratching the back of my neck. Sorry to bother you. I just moved in next door. My wrench broke mid-repair and, before I could finish, she smiled and stepped back. Toolboxes in the hallway. Come in. I'm Ava. The house smelled like lavender and fresh paint. A canvas leaned against the wall, half finished, with a stormy ocean in hues I didn't know existed. There were coffee rings on the table, a sleeping cat on the windowsill, and something about the way she looked at me, curious, open, that made my pulse stutter. I didn't know it then, but that 5-minute errand would become the most important knock of my life. Over the next few weeks, we talked. Not dates, just coincidences. She'd be outside watering the porch plants when I'd come home from work. I'd bring over leftover muffins from the bakery down the block, pretending they were too much for one person, though I knew damn well I bought them for her. She was a freelance illustrator, mostly book covers and editorial art. Her studio was her living room, which was always lit by warm Edison bulbs, soft acoustic music, and the quiet chaos of someone living passionately. I draw people I'll never meet, she told me once, eyes scanning a pencil sketch. But somehow, they always feel like pieces of me. There was a quiet sadness in her, like someone who loved deeply and had lost just as much. We were both good at pretending. Work, on the other hand, was hell. My boss, Liam, liked to wear expensive suits and steal your ideas. I'd been working on a client overhaul pitch for weeks. Late nights, lost weekends. The kind of corporate game where everyone smiles, but knives stay hidden behind spreadsheets. One night, after a brutal presentation where Liam took credit for my entire strategy, I got home, dropped my keys, and leaned against the door. I hadn't even taken my shoes off when there was a soft knock. It was Ava, holding a mug of tea. You okay? She asked gently, eyes scanning my face. I told her everything. About Liam, about the stolen pitch, about feeling invisible, replaceable, trapped in a job I once loved. She listened. No judgment, no empty advice, just presence. I know what it's like, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, to pour yourself into something and have someone else stamp their name on it. Then she handed me the mug. On the rim, in permanent marker, she'd written, "For the man who builds things, even when the world tries to break him." And damn it, that was the first time I cried in years. That night I couldn't sleep. I thought about her laugh, her paint-stained fingers, the way she sang to her cat, the way she saw me, not as a tired tech guy or a grease-covered weekend mechanic, but as something more. And then I did something stupid. I left a note on her porch. If you ever need someone to draw you, I'm right next door. P.S. I don't mean just sketch me. I mean see me, like you already do. I regretted it the second I slipped it under her door. But the next morning, there was a knock on my door. She was standing there, cheeks flushed, hair a tangled mess like she'd just woken up. She didn't say anything, just held up a sketchbook. On the page, a portrait of me, not posed, not smiling, just me, tired, hopeful, honest. Underneath, in her looping handwriting, "I've been drawing you since day one. We kissed that night. Not fireworks, not feverish, just soft, deliberate, like something long overdue. For weeks, we were wrapped in our own quiet world. Sunday pancakes, shared playlists, a slow dance at 2 a.m. in the kitchen with flour in our hair. Felt like peace. But peace doesn't last. Not in stories like mine. One Friday evening, I came home from work early, a rare half-day. I thought I'd surprise her with dinner. I had the bag of groceries in one hand, phone in the other. I let myself into her place. She'd given me a key the week before, but I froze. She wasn't alone. A man stood in her studio, holding one of her sketchbooks. Tall, sharply dressed, hair slicked back like he belonged in another version of her life. He looked up and locked eyes with me, and then he said, "So, this is the guy you left me for?" My hands went numb. The grocery bag slipped. Apples rolled across the hardwood floor. Ava turned pale. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "Michael, I can explain." And just like that, my entire world cracked. The man's words hung in the air like a suffocating fog. "So, this is the guy you left me for?" I stood there, frozen, heart hammering so loud I thought it would drown out everything else. Ava's eyes flickered between me and him, a flicker of panic I'd never seen before. "This isn't what you think?" She finally breathed out, voice trembling like fragile glass. "Please, just listen." But I wasn't sure if I wanted to listen or run. "Who is he?" I asked, voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. She swallowed hard, then gestured toward the hallway. "Marcus, my ex. It's complicated." I glanced at Marcus again, a man who seemed like the polished, successful version of everything I wasn't. The kind of guy you meet at charity galas or fancy art shows, not in a paint-stained flannel with grease smudges. Complicated? That word suddenly felt like a razor slicing through my chest. They sat me down in the small living room. Ava wrung her hands nervously, Marcus stoic, watching me like a judge sizing up a jury. She started to explain. Marcus had been her boyfriend for years. Their relationship was tangled in promises, betrayals, and things neither of them wanted to admit out loud. The last few months had been a slow unraveling, a desperate grasp at something slipping away. "I never meant to hurt you," Ava said, eyes glistening. "I didn't know how to end it without breaking you." I swallowed, the pieces sliding off the puzzle I thought I was building with her. "You should have told me," I said quietly. "I wasn't some secret." Marcus stood up then, his voice low and sharp. "Look, Michael, Ava's not perfect. Neither am I. We've made mistakes. Maybe we both wanted different things. But you just showed up, and suddenly everything was supposed to change." I clenched my fists. "I didn't ask to step into someone else's mess." She looked at me, really looked, and I saw the guilt and confusion in her eyes. The question I didn't want to hear. Did she love me? Or was I just a refuge? A distraction from a past she couldn't forget? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my dark room, the wrench from the first day still on the bedside table. A cruel reminder. The silence was deafening. Did love mean walking into a storm you weren't prepared for? Or was I just another sketch she'd abandon when the light shifted? I called my best friend, Jake, trying to piece my thoughts together. "You think she's the one?" he asked, voice calm but honest. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. It's like I was seeing half a picture, and now the rest is spilling out. Messy, painful, real. Jake paused. "Sometimes the hardest stories are the ones worth telling, even if they break you." Work was no refuge either. Liam's shadow was longer than ever. The stolen pitch had exploded into a new project, and I was forced to work under Marcus's company. Marcus, the man haunting my every thought. The same Marcus who held Ava's heart in one hand and a business contract in the other. At the office, Marcus was charming, sharp, and cold. A perfect adversary. Every meeting was a battlefield. Every conversation laced with subtle digs and half smiles. One afternoon, I found myself alone in the conference room, staring at the city skyline through the glass. My phone buzzed. Ava, can we talk? Please. I hesitated. Was I ready to face her again? To hear her reasons, her fears, her truth? I told myself yes. I wanted answers or maybe just closure. When I got to her apartment, the air was thick with tension. I'm sorry, she said before I could speak. I never meant to drag you into this. We sat, the clock ticking louder than our words. I wanted to be honest with you, but I was scared. Scared of losing you, scared of losing myself. Her confession wasn't a bomb. It was a wound. But Michael, she continued, voice trembling, I don't want to lose us. I want to try with everything I have. That night, I stood on my porch, staring at the stars, heart torn between hope and heartbreak. Could love survive this tangled web of past and present? Could I forgive her, forgive myself, for knocking on the door of a heart already fractured? The wrench in my pocket was cold, heavy, and I realized sometimes the tools we need aren't just for fixing machines. Sometimes they're for fixing what's inside us. The days that followed were a blur of coffee, whispered conversations, and long silences that screamed louder than any argument. Ava and I tried to navigate the wreckage between us, a map with no clear roads. One morning, I woke to a text from Marcus. We need to talk. My chest tightened. That afternoon, he showed up unannounced at my garage, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. You and Ava have something, he said, blunt, but you don't know the whole story. I shook my head. Then tell me. He sighed and told me things Ava couldn't. The way their relationship had spiraled under the weight of his addiction. The business failures. The nights filled with silence and resentment. I wasn't the man she thought I could be, he admitted. And she's paying the price for leaving. For the first time, I saw Marcus not as an enemy but as a broken man trying to own his demons. That moment cracked something open inside me. Later that night, Ava came over. Her eyes were swollen from tears. I want to be honest, she said, voice raw. I was scared of hurting you, but I was also scared of losing myself if I stayed with him. She took my hands, trembling. Michael, I don't want to lose us, but I know we're both fragile right now. We sat together in silence, the weight of unspoken truths settling between us. I realized love wasn't a fairy tale. It was a battlefield, a second chance, a fragile hope stitched from broken pieces. Work became a strange refuge. I found myself facing Liam and Marcus in the same room during a critical meeting. The tension was electric, but instead of retreating, I stood firm, using every ounce of grit and honesty I'd found in the chaos of my heart. I presented a bold new idea, raw and real, and this time it was mine. Months later, Ava and I sat on the porch, wrapped in a quilt against the cool night. The stars above felt endless. I never thought I'd say this, I whispered, but I'm glad I knocked on your door. She smiled softly. Sometimes, the things we need most come when we least expect them. Love is messy. It doesn't come wrapped in perfect bows or clean endings. It arrives with broken tools, torn hearts, and unfinished sketches. But in the cracks, in the imperfect moments, that's where we find truth. I learned that sometimes you have to risk everything just to borrow a wrench and end up with a heart in your hands. Because love, real love, is not about perfection. It's about choosing to build again and again, even when the world tries to break you.